Hi, I'm Michael Newrock and welcome to the market analysis video for August 29. We'll get straight into it and let's start on gold. This trade has rocketed early this week. Well, yesterday I stated that there was a new trend trade occurring here, and the stop wasn't real big, about a $6 move in the price of gold as opposed to about an $8 or $9 recent high move, which is around 800 pips. Well, it skyrocketed through that to a high of around 1,324 from 1,291. So, it's a $30 price move in the price of gold, representing just over 3,000 pips. So if you caught this one, congratulations. I've been bullish on gold for quite some time, and I have no reason to change that stance. You can see going back, just sliding, you can see that it's just been going through these waves. I'll just see if we can scroll back to where it all started. So around 1217, thereabouts. Since then, it's been rallying, having these little consolidations, moving up. This one was a bit steeper, and now we have it moving right up to over 1,300. So at this stage, I would look at possibly a shorter time frame if you wanted to get in on it, say on a 15-minute, and wait for an opportunity. But at this stage, the move has already occurred. You can see it consolidating here well on the 15-minute. So maybe not the 15-minute. Let's have a look around, see what time frame looks more suitable. Well, you could wait here for a bit of a fade on the MACD, wait for a nice swing up. Always try to wait until that MACD histogram has come down to close to that zero line, and then wait for a nice big swing. Sometimes there's swings, but they're just not good enough, so they can bounce around a little bit, but sometimes you catch a nice one that keeps on going. So the 1 hour may be the one to stick on right now. Even if you looked at a 5-minute, and I don't usually go onto the really short time frames like 5-minute, well, there's no trade there. It's flat as, so I wouldn't be looking at that. Sometimes though, it presents a decent opportunity. So I'm going to sit it back on the 1 hour and see what happens. But if you're not in the trade right now, then wait for a correction and a swing up, and it may rally even higher than this high here. So just looking real quick on the daily, it's still pushing way ahead. On the weekly, you can see, just remove this little thing. Always try to tidy up on your charts. It helps. But you can see on the weekly here that there's still another well, to around 1,370, the price of gold back in late May, and that would be the target that the big guys would be eyeing. We have moved into a weekly trend trade, so weekly's looking like a new emerging trend move. Daily strong, albeit for a long time, but this asset isn't going anywhere other than up. I would say now, when I say that, of course, I mean after corrections in the case of now. But I have no reason to change my stance on it. So bullish on gold currently. Euro's been wonderful trade. This is the one back from last week, right? It was taken on a 15-minute time frame, and I was looking for a trade at that time, and it's currently I've locked in profits of about 195 pips. If it takes me out now, then so be it, and I'll look at getting back in. 5 out of 6 high time frames are pointing up, so we look like we might be a bit extended here on price. MACD is really high. Price is decent distance from the 7-bar moving average, or the slow gray moving average that we refer to in Trend Profiteer. So now it would just be a matter of waiting for an opportunity if you're not in this trade already. If you are, congratulations. Okay, pound I've been saying has been slower, and it has been started to take off now, and I'm waiting for a possible flip-flop between the euro and the pound, with maybe a correction or profit taking occurring on the euro. that driving the euro pound down, and in so doing, driving the pound Swiss potentially up, and the pound going up as well. So it hasn't been going with a lot of big moves, but certainly if you got in on this trend trade here, then you're up 70 pips. Congratulations. If you're not, then look for a swing to the upside. Right now it's all about this trade moving higher. If it starts collapsing under the fast moving average, that's your first sign. It's already in bidirectional market, but that could change very easily. But I would be looking at opportunities to the upside with the pound, unless something significant happened. So we'll see how it goes over the course of this trading day. Euro pound again, it's still been going, just really going fantastic to the upside. So unless we get a really strong move down and a crossover of these moving averages, trend follower changing to red, then we could have an opportunity to the downside. But right now, it's just about not looking too far in the future. Say on the 1 hour, well, it's not really a decent looking one here. You've got the parabolic SAR still in play as well. So I'd just be leaving it on the 4 hour. And maybe, unless you are wanting to look at getting in on a short-term upward move, maybe again the 15-minute. And you can see here, looks like an opportunity occurring. This could be, a decent little one to get. And then if it breaks recent highs, then you're back in the game for a bigger move. So let's just take a look. Let's say hypothetically, if you got in around 92, 92.50, 92.55 even, up to here, you've got a stop loss of 5 or 6 or 7 pips, not a lot. And you're playing a different game here. This is more of a scalp trade. All the principles are still the same. Around 14 pips to the recent high. So you've got a 1 to 2 risk reward ratio. If it breaks through this high, then I'd suggest start looking at it as a 4-hour trade. Now, you are going to need to manage it on the 15-minute. Actually, one thing that I should bring to your attention as well is if you are watching it on the 4-hour and a new trade comes up as a 4-hour, then the Trend Profiteer trade assistant will execute a new trade on that 4-hour. So you'll have 2 trades going, and to manage them, you'd simply need to flip between your 15-minute and your 4-hour time frame. But that is something that up until now I have forgotten to mention. So if you are taking it on a 15-minute and you do flick it over to the 14-minute, then one, your management won't work on your 15-minute, at least you change it back to your 15-minute. So in the early stages, just to clarify, in the early stages of a trade, I will view it and have it managed on the trade that I take it. But if it busts through here, then I might change it to the 4-hour. But just to recap, if you are in the 4-hour and a new trade occurs, like maybe a swing trade to the upside, then it's going to take that trade as well. So if you're in profit on the 15-minute, that's not such a bad thing. You're stacking trades this way. You're adding more positions. It can be a bit dicey, and I would really caution on it at the moment because we are really in high territory here on this euro pound. So when there's more opportunity for the return, then it wouldn't be such a thing that that needs so much caution. But in this case, it very well may do. Okay, pound Swiss, mirror reverse of the euro pound, pretty much. No real opportunities at this stage, and again, it's just so far to the downside. So I would like to see a flip that I've been talking about, because they're really poised to and some really good moves, but you need to be careful because it's been going up for so long, and pound Swiss the opposite of that's been going down for so long. So Ozzy, it rallied up to here, and then it's collapsed on this resistance. So I mentioned in one of the previous videos that we might see it meandering around a little bit, and it looks like that's happened, especially in the last couple of bars. We've had a collapse, so if you did take this trade, I hope you locked in some profits, and that's the necessity of it. Right now, while it's bidirectional, you could look at a upswing to the so a upward swing here. If histogram changes to green, RSI is already above 50. But if the price moves further down below, particularly the slow moving average, then it might be time to look at a short position on the Aussie. Still the Aussie Kiwi, which as I've been talking about previously, is still rallying high. We saw earlier today this big candle down, and it looked like a possible emerging downward trend trade, and that may still occur. Trend follower, interesting to note, has changed to red. So if we get another price move and we get another two of these indicators changing to red, then we could be looking at the start of a new trend trade to the downside. And if that occurs, that's going to definitely be all bets off for going long on the Aussie, and I would be more interested in looking at short trades. Kiwi, similar kind of thing as the Aussie. It's been the weaker of the two, hence by the Aussie Kiwi going up. So that's telling us that the Aussie is stronger than the Kiwi. So no real trade here. I thought for a second that it may be moving up, and in the chat room I mentioned the Kiwi CAD, which we'll look at it in a moment as being a possible opportunity, but it collapsed pretty quickly, so not really interested in the Kiwi. Look at it, some crosses, but it's pretty much deciding itself. The MACD has dropped. See how it's gone bright red from the darker red? That's giving us an easier idea or understanding of which side of the zero line that it's sitting on, and it's really under pressure. Okay, dollar CAD. Been waiting for some sign, and earlier today we saw this big rally up on the 1 hour. You can see it a bit clearer. So this was a nice trend trade to the upside, and right now this would be a nice little swing trade to look at to the upside. Now that could happen pretty much any time. It's at the area that I like to see, close to that zero line here. So if you can pick a nice swing up, decent sized swing, and the price comfortably above that fast moving average or gold moving average, then hypothetically, let's say you took a swing around with the close of the bar here around 25, say even 25.15, your stop would be around 20 pips, and to the recent high around 20 pips. So 1 to 1, I always like to go 1 to 2, but might be a good one, and that would be an early way of getting into. I mean, if you look at it, just going back, if it passes this high, a couple of pips more to this high, and then you've got about 80 pips in the game potentially for a 20 pip risk. So it's a 4 times reward factor, and if it does push up, then if you look at the 4 hour, we could see if it pushes up to around here, breaks past this point here, then you're looking at a new 4 hour trend trade occurring for sure, with this moving average crossovers and trend follower changing the green. So that hasn't happened as yet, and for at this stage, that's why you've got to keep an eye on both sides of the market. Only be loyal to the market. It's bidirectional. If we get a swing down, I mean, look at the MACD, and this is the type of short that I would be looking for, where it makes nice curve here, this nice parabolic bell shape. If you get a swing down, particularly if it's below the signal line, RSI is already below the 50 line. So if it came down to about here, say 24.90 or 24.85 or even 24.80, There's 35 pips for the stop, and sorry, for the reward to that low, and probably only about 25 pips, 30 pips maybe for the risk. And yeah, it's been under a lot of pressure. So I will be looking at this trade two ways. If price is going to collapse, then look at a possible short on that 4-hour swing. If it's going to move up, then on say the 1 hour as a swing, then it could move quite a bit higher. If you do that, then, or either way, but I think particularly the 1 hour upswing, you want to lock in your profits or move it to break even pretty quickly. So watch this level, and better yet, adjust your profit locks for your position one to be prior to this high. And if nothing else, move your stops to break even, and then from that point, if it bounces around and eventually goes up, that's great. It's been a free trade. If it moves against you, then you haven't lost anything. So and when you move your stops to break even as well, just allow for the spread. So always a good idea to put it a couple of pips up above your entry position. Okay, so dollar Swiss being under a lot of pressure, and nice trend trade to the downside here, if you caught that. Good one. I was actually looking at the opposite direction earlier, but wasn't to be. That's when it was bidirectional. And since then, a lot of pressure. MACD's under pressure here, so I have no real reason to think otherwise. And remember, the dollar Swiss is almost like the reverse correlation. Well, this is a reverse correlation pretty much of the euro US. So the euro is really, really strong. Dollar Swiss is under pressure. Makes sense. And if you see, say, for example, that could be an early warning. If you see the euro collapse, then look for how the dollar Swiss is reacting, and it'll probably be the opposite. And then you can assess which one's going to be the better opportunity. But for now, strongly downward. Okay, dollar yen. Dollar yen, it's just been a sad story. It'd be difficult to catch these upward moves under a lot of pressure. 6 out of 6 high time frames are pointing down, so I really am not going to fight against that. We would need to see a crossover on that 4-hour for markets to go bidirectional again. So at this stage, you might look at it on say the shorter time frame. Let's have a look on say the 15. Well, there's no trade there to the downside unless there was a crossover. Then there might be an opportunity there. Looking at it on the 1 hour, you might be able to get a swing down. There might be some more upward correction and then a swing down. As the MACD gets closer to that zero line, this one might be a nice one. Let's say if you caught it around here, it keeps on correcting, say up to here, then swings down to about here. You're looking at about 20 pips for your stop and 50 pips to that low. So, the market's telling us dollar yen is just not doing too well. Who am I to argue? Sell it when you can. Euro yen on the other side has been really going well, and that's mainly due to the strength of the euro. So earlier last week, this trade was taken as a swing. Was it a swing trade? Yeah, swing trade. And it did extremely well. Reached a high of just over 200 pips. Only about 125 pips, 24 pips thereabouts on one part, and just under 100 pips on the second part. Annoying, but still a lot of pips. This bar here really took them both out. So maybe I should have looked at fine tuning the stops a little bit more. And what you can do mid-flight is change your stops. So if it's using a particular trailing methodology, then mid-flight you can get into your settings and adjust them. I probably wouldn't have changed part 2, but part 1, I can see the that I should have changed it to, say, the fast moving average, and I would have been taken out around here. So what are we talking about? About 25, 27 pips thereabouts. So not too bad. And where is it going from now? Well, if the euro continues to be strong, then potentially up on an upward swing. But we'll see how the yen crosses play out. If there's weakness in these crosses, the pound yen's going nowhere. Maybe a big swing might see it move up, but it needs to be obviously bidirectional. Now, a 4-hour swing would change that to a bidirectional market. Might be a good opportunity there if the pound is strong. Up until for quite some time, the pound has been pretty weak. Aussie yen, well, it's collapsing on itself. It hasn't formed technically a trend trade yet, but 4 out of 6 high time frames to the downside. I mean, you could get in on this on a shorter time frame if you wanted to. If there's continued weakness in the Aussie, then, let's say, see, this big move had the market stretched. We've seen a correction. If it, say, continues to correct to about here, then swings down, especially if that MACD is higher, towards closer to the 0 line. That's where I like to see it. Then, it could be a nice swing to the downside. Same with the Kiwi yen. The Aussie and the Kiwi have been a lot weaker than the euro and the pound. So CAD yen, new 4-hour trend trade has just occurred. So, that could be a nice one. This is a pretty nice trade. Especially if the dollar CAD goes up as well, then that's putting pressure on the Canadian loonie. So, CAD yen could suffer as a result as well. So about 45 pips, maybe 50 pips for your stop. You've got about just over 50 pips to this recent low. You've got another low here that you can use as a point of reference, about just under 100 pips, 95 pips, and 160 pips. Looks really tempting. So again, if dollar CAD moves up, puts pressure on the CAD yen could be one cross to look at shorting. So it could be the trade of this analysis so far. Well, actually, there's a couple of good ones that we've seen so far. See how they eventuate. But this one is in play right now, and it could be a good one. Could be a good one. Swiss yen, on the other hand, has been moving strongly up. So you can see there's a bit of it's been going on the tailwinds of the euro yen. So you can see particularly those two have gone really well in the yen crosses, but every other yen cross has gone bad. Well, to the downside. So if you're shorting it, then it's been good. So Euro Aussie. Okay, this has been going really nice, and of course I've been talking about this since last week, and we're looking at, well, you know what? Looks like my computer closed unexpectedly earlier today. So sometimes things like this happen, and when you get back into MetaTrader, things look a bit weird on your arrows. So just change time frames. See, I just changed from the 1 hour to the from the 4 hour to the 1 hour, back to the 4 hour. You can see all the arrows are correct now. So good to know if anything looks a bit funky. Change time frames. So it blasted right through this high, 150 pips. It's now 270 odd pips from this high, this trend trade, and the swing trade was just fantastic as well. And since then, we've had two swings. 6 out of 6 royal flush. High time frames are all pointing up. So if you're not on this trade, then maybe look at a shorter time frame. We do have a high in play here, so that's always really nice. 1 hour. Let's look, say, at the 15-minute. Look for a trade. Okay. All right. So we've had a swing trade to the upside just now. It could be a possibility. But let's have a look at it on the 30-minute. It's been consolidating here, well, drifting up. I'm not sure if this drift is over. Maybe the 30-minute to me looks a little nicer. So about 17 and 20 pips thereabouts on the stop. Just under 40 pips. So I like that. 1 to 2 risk reward, or another way of looking at it is 2 times reward multiplier. You know, you're getting $2 for every $1 you're risking. So this trade still seems good to the upside. Maybe wait for a swing. Try to get, look for the nice swings. These 2 swings were valid, but neither busted through the signal line, and the moves themselves were really small. So technically, they are swings, swings within a trend, but they don't look like the very best of them. And you can expect sometimes further consolidation in the market because this trade's just been booming for quite some time. So I'm going to move it back on the 4-hour, but maybe the 15-minute, maybe the 30-minute, maybe even the 1 hour. Let's have a look. If you've got more patience, you see this one looks like a lot more room to move to the downside on that correction. Not saying that it will, I'm just saying the MACD is fairly high already. So yeah, maybe the 30-minute out of the pick of them, or the 30-minute looks like a decent one. Or again, maybe let's have a second relook at the 15-minute. Yeah, I mean, certainly the risk here, you're always looking for opportunities on the basis of the value of the trade. On this case, you've got a 10 pip stop loss, and you've got still that same 35, 37, 38 pip profit. So, it's a 3.5 times reward multiplier, or in other words, a 1 to 3.5 risk reward ratio. So, trading is speculative in nature, and if anyone says that it's not, then it's just not true. So always look for where you can find decent value in the trade. Okay, pound Aussie, we were talking about this in the chat room earlier today. Richard brought it to my attention. Now, I've been looking at the pound Aussie for some time. These crosses have been going well, actually, this one, up until now, I haven't been looking at it. I've been focused on the Euro Aussie, the Pound Kiwi, which I called previously. Let's just have a look at this. This isn't looking right either. I'll get back to that Pound Aussie. Okay, there we go. Again, because of my computer crashing on me earlier today. So back to the Pound Aussie. Pound Aussie, it's broken this bar. Very exciting. It broke through all of these highs and closed just above this open. That's important. You wouldn't have wanted to have seen it close any lower. And it's been available. You've been able to get this trade on a couple of different time frames. So I think there's a lot of room in the market for it, particularly if the pound continues moving up, because it has been weaker. But look at the potential reward. Look at all this blank space. I mean, there's really only one point here, and that's this price here. And you can see this is fairly significant. You can see that price did break above. Didn't close above. We still need to have that happen. If it does close above, further confirmation that this trade is moving to the upside. So what we did today in the chat was go over a couple of different time frames to see if we could identify where which time frame would be good to take. And in fact, it did come up on the 30-minute, and this trade was actually taken on the 15-minute. And I chose the 15-minute again because of the risk reward, whereas on this 30-minute, just coming back to it real quick, you can see if this one was taken on a 30-minute, the risk was about 45 to even 50 pips. And even when it was taken on this one here, it was about 30 odd pips. And the recent high is about 30 pips. Now, I see this pair going much higher if it does move, if it does continue to move upward, and we see weakness in the Aussie. That's a real key thing here, because this isn't going so much on pound strength. Although it's been gathering strength, it's not really that compelling. But anyway, back to the 15-minute. I chose the 15-minute, even though you can see here on the MACD, I'll just point this one out. Bit of a shame. This one here actually did look like a valid swing, but I think that the close price was just like a fraction under the fast-moving average. Of course, it had to be at least equal to or above, but on an aggressive trade, equal to the fast-moving average for it to be valid. If so, then that would have been 20 pips already in profit. Wasn't to be. Took this one here, and still reasonable, because only about 19 pips on the stop and 28 odd pips to this high. So, not the biggest reward multiplier, but I'm looking at getting using the system to get me into the trade at that particular time, because when we were looking at it on the 4-hour, you just didn't know how far it was going to fall. You can see the retracement on that candle. Now, if I move back to the 1-hour, you can see it was back here. Now, when you're looking at big downward bar moves, you want to know that it's, or have the best idea that it's ended. So right now, back to what I'm looking at is, well, with 4 out of 6 of the high time frames are pointing up. So I'm bullish on this. Just like the Euro Aussie went extremely well. Move that back to the 4-hour. You can see big moves here. Now I'm thinking the pound Aussie may do the same. We've had this big move. If you caught this trend trade, then fantastic. And that brings me to the point that if you see something moving on a higher time frame, drill down on those shorter time frames. You might be able to pick them at a much better time. So Euro Kiwi moving upward, continuing to move upward. Royal Flush, 6 out of 6 higher of the higher time frames are pointing up. You can see here on the daily, it's just powering ahead. On the weekly, you can see here it's entered this big consolidation zone, but no sign of it stalling. So there's plenty of room in this, about 1,500 pips, which is huge on a currency, of course. So just a matter of finding the opportunity. Of course, this trade has already moved. I'm not saying to get off this video now and enter a trade in the Euro Kiwi. Look for a correction. Okay, so if you stay on the 4-hour, the MACD is really high, and wait for it to move down to the 0 line or closer to the 0 line for a swing. Or, as I've demonstrated on the other pairs, look at a shorter time frame. But right now, we're at all-time highs, and of course, the Trend Profiteer system's been doing a good job in finding those trades for us. So if you're in this trade or have been in this trade, congratulations, you're doing great. Pound Kiwi, same thing. It's been moving upward and then just flashing through. Aussie CAD, not really happy with that at all. It gave a trend trade a bit too far from the moving average. You can see here, it's a good example of being too far from the crossover, almost 40 pips. And a really big bar in comparison to most of the other bars here. Aussie weakness is the story here. Kiwi CAD, I posted in the chat earlier, is this going to be the trade of the day? And clearly not. This is one of those awful trades. Kiwi weakness, should have known better on this one. Very, very tempting though, and I'll reassess this if we see strength in the Kiwi. If there's strength in the Kiwi, then maybe just a matter of collaboration and looking for another opportunity, because there's plenty of return opportunity there. Look at the dollar CAD as well. If you see the dollar CAD moving up, placing pressure on the CAD, and remember to look at that CAD yen for possible short, and then you might want to come back to these CAD crosses, either the Aussie CAD, Kiwi CAD, Euro CAD, of course, has been going well because of the strength of the euro. Maybe the pound CAD, but it hasn't been performing that fantastic. at all. So let's just flick back, and I did it again. I thought to myself that I'll try to make it fairly quick, or maybe I verbalized it, but even longer than yesterday, so I apologize. I know your time is important. I'm trying to summarize these as best as I can, but I still think video is a really great medium to be able to, go over these in detail. Otherwise, you'd be reading pages of information and pictures, and sometimes, well, what have we got here? Pound Aussie. Let's just finish off on this pound Aussie. Just before I do that, I'm going to reset these time frames as well. I think I need to shut down my MetaTrader and reopen it again, coming back from that. There you go. That looks better from that crash. I like that one. Looks pretty good. So pound Aussie, that's one that. So another swing. Let's see how it goes. Use the weakness of the Aussie and Kiwi to your advantage on these crosses, and look how the CAD's going. A lot of information. Good luck today. Till next time, good trading, live well, and I'll see you soon.